Good evening. Today we'll discuss about the topic of what is the object-oriented programming languages. What is the concept of basically we have to know about the concept of program. So what is a program? Program is nothing but a collection of instructions. So if you want to do any task to be performed, first we have to write those tasks into the number of steps or sequence of steps. We can call them as a program. There are two types of possibilities in writing the program. One is the procedural programming and object-oriented programming. What is meant by procedure-oriented programming? In procedure-oriented programming concept, a program is divided into number of subparts, which we can call them as a functions. Whereas in case of object-oriented programming, a program is divided into number of objects. A object is nothing but a collection of data and also the functions. Sometimes we can call them as a methods. So a data and function together we can call as an object. What the purpose of function in the object is, whatever the data we are providing, and if you want to do some calculation based on the data, we need some code. The code will be specified under the method. So here the object which contains the data and method or function, here the function is completely to know the functionality of the data. In case of object-oriented program, as we told now, is a collection of objects. What is the advantage of creating an object? So whenever we are making the data and function together and creating as an object, the data cannot be accessed by the other persons or any other objects or any other classes. So here the process of tidying the data and functions together into a single unit, we can call them as a encapsulation. So means the process involved of combining the data and functions together in a single unit called encapsulation. Because the process of encapsulation, the data will be secured and cannot easily accessed by the other objects of any other classes. The result of the encapsulation process, we can call them as an object. So here the encapsulation is one of the basic advantages of the object-oriented programming. The second one is abstraction. What is meant by abstraction? Abstraction is nothing but without providing the complete functionality of a function, will just specify the declaration of a function. So what is the advantage of this one? When you don't specify the code and if you display only the declarative part, no one doesn't know what is the code behind and it will be kept secret. So this is a concept of abstraction. So means the abstraction process, the operations which we are performing will be kept secret. So means the function declaration can be only possible, but we won't define. So okay, where we define the function? If we declare that is okay in the object. If you want to write the code for the data in an object, where you will write in a case of abstraction. You can write the code outside the class, otherwise any other class. So means whenever you specify a function as an abstract function, then the function code can be defined outside the object or any other classes also, in any other classes. That is advantage of here the concept of the abstraction. The first one is the encapsulation and the second one is the abstraction. And next one is the concept of the polymorphism. What do you mean by polymorphism? For example, I want to do a task that is nothing but addition or multiplication. So for example, let us say addition. If I provide two numbers which we can call as operands and I would like to perform addition, if the both operands are integers, we can say the result is integer type. Both are float, we can say float type. Both are character, we can say it is a concatenation, called a concatenation. So the concept is the same, that we have to add, but we have to specify the function name for each and every function. So if I use two parameters as integer, I have to specify our function name. If I use two float points as the parameters, we have to function name. Two strings values, we have to give the function name. So means whenever the parameters are being changing, so we have to specify the function names also. But in case of polymorphism, the concept here is there is no need to change the function name. So you can use the same function name for different functions. If you define a function that relate to the parameters of integer, you can give add. If one integer and one floating parameter, you can use add. But the internal coding in the function will be different. So means here the concept here is the function name remains same for the same activity, but the parameters will vary. So the concept of the polymorphism is nothing but using the same name for the different functions, but with different parameters. This is the concept of polymorphism. And next one is the concept is inheritance. What is meant by inheritance? It is a process of deriving a new properties and from an existing property. For example, we are already aware that every object-oriented program is based upon the classes. Let us suppose I have one class. The class name is the person, which has the properties like is a name, is a age, height, etc. And I would like to derive a new class from the class which is already existed, the person class, which I can call as an employee. So when you see here, when you try to derive a new class employee from the person class, here the advantage is few properties of the person class like height, or means for example color, anything. Few properties can the possibility to get into the employee class. The concept of inheritance is clear that acquiring the properties of an existing class by a new class is called inheritance. What's the advantage of the concept of inheritance is there is no need to declare the data repeatedly. Here, once you define the data in one class, the data can be utilized by the another class by simply getting the inherited. A small example in real life, if the grandfather is there, the son can acquire the properties of his father and father can acquire the properties of his grandfather. So here the concept is that few properties can be acquired by these subsequent levels. Here whatever the class from which we are getting the properties is called as a base class. Into which class you are getting the properties is called the derived class. There are various types of inheritances when you go to the C++ or Java or Python. Here in C++, we have a single, multi-level, multiple, hierarchical and hybrid inheritances. In single inheritances, there is only involvement of two classes, one base class and one derived class. In case of multi-level, there is one base and one derived, and again the derived to the derived and derived to the derived and so on to the lower levels. The multiple, the concept here is one class can be derived from more than one base class. Here the base classes is increasing, whereas derived class is single one. In case of hierarchy, it is the reverse of the multiple inheritance. Nothing but only one base class exists and more than one derived class can be defined. Simple example. A son can acquire the properties of his mother and father. This is called multiple. In the reverse case, daughter and the son can acquire the properties of father. This is nothing but a hierarchical. And what is hybrid? It's a combination of more than one inheritance. In C++, we have multi-level, multiple, single, hierarchical, and hybrid inheritance. Where in case of Java, we have single, hierarchical, hybrid, multi-level. But multiple inheritances is a big problem with the Java. To overcome this problem, Java will utilize one feature called the interfaces. When you want to define a new class from another class, we'll use a keyword extend in Java. Whereas in case of multiple inheritances, you cannot use the keyword extend. When we use the extend, if you want to inherit a class from another class. But in the case of multiple inheritance, you cannot inherit. So then what you have to do is you have to implement. So how do you implement? With the help of the keyword called implements. So what is the concept of implements here is only in the concept of the multiple inheritance the problem occurs. Because in multiple inheritance we cannot inherit directly. So that's why we implement it using the keyword implement. If you want to implement the properties of one class into another class, the base class must have at least one abstract function. We already discussed the concept of abstract function earlier now. Here abstract is nothing but not providing the complete details of the definition of a function, only the declarative will be provided. So if a class have at least one abstract function, I can able to implement into another class. So this is a concept of inheritance. So here the C++, we can directly use the concept of single, multi-level, multiple, hierarchical and hybrid. But in case of Java, only in the case of multiple inheritance, we have to use implements rather than the extends. If you want to derive a new class from an existing class, you have to use the keyword extend. But in case of multiple inheritance, you have to use the keyword implements. So these are the basic advantages or basic properties of the object-oriented program. We'll come around. First one is the class. What is the class? Class is nothing but an instance of an instance. Class is one of the data type, which is an abstract data type. Class is an abstract data type, which will allow you to create a structure for the objects. When you try to create the class must contain two parts. One is the data part and one is the definition functions part. The data part, by default, it is a private. In function part, default it is a public. Why the data is private and why function is the public? Because our aim is to keep the data safe. For that I said it is a private. But if sometimes it required to access by the other classes, in that case I have to make it available. So for that sake, what I will do is I will take the help of the functions to use the data. That's why I say the functions are always public. Can it possible to restrict the functions as private? Yes, you can do. But it can be appropriate only for the specific class, but not all the classes. If you want to use the properties in another class also, at least it have to be inherited, then only you can able to use the data in other classes. So here the class part is over. What is the object? Object is nothing but an instance of class, like an object of the class or the variable of the class. Like if you say int a is the variable of integer. The same type, Here the object is nothing but a variable of the class. So the process of creating the objects, we can call them as encapsulation. Or the process here, tidying up of data and functions together to a single unit, is called encapsulation. Then what is the abstraction? It's a process of providing the basic details about the functionality of a class instead of providing the complete details. So means we'll provide only the declarative part of a function rather than providing the complete code of the function. Then where you write the code, we can write the code outside the class or in any other class. So next come to the point, what is the inheritance? It's a process of acquiring the properties of one class by another class. What is the use of this one? The data cannot be repeatedly defined. Once you define the data in one class, the data can be used in another class. That is the concept here. And what is the polymorphism? The polymorphism is nothing but providing the same name for different functions but with different parameters. If the functionalities remain same and the function name is remain same, but only the parameters get various. This is called the polymorphism. In case of inheritances, Java supports single, multi-level, hierarchical, hybrid, but directly not support the multiple. So it cannot directly support the inheritance. Then how can you approach? We can approach by using the concept of implements. So how do you implement? With using a concept called interfaces. So interfaces are the one type of platform like a classes. Like classes we are creating, in the same ways we can also create the interfaces. When you create the interfaces, we can implement those interfaces into our classes. See here, a class can be implemented by the interface. A class can be extended by the class. An interface can be implemented by another interface. Remember, once again, repeating again, a class can be derived by another class. A class can be implemented by interface. An interface can be implemented by another interface. But it should not possible that an interface cannot implement or extend by a class. Because the class interface cannot acquire the properties of the class. But class can acquire the properties of the interface. So this is the concept here. So this is about the basic concepts of the object-oriented programming. So where we'll use the programming languages like C++, Java, Python, and different object-oriented programming languages. Okay, thank you.